Okay, so now let's explore the template of Visual Studio 2022 for ASP.NET Core and Angular. So you don't have to follow along. During this challenge, you will have enough time where you can completely write code and figure out things on your own. So let's create a new project right here. Let's search for a template, search for Angular. You can see the first one here saying ASP.NET Core with Angular, and that's exactly the one that we need, a project template for creating an ASP.NET Core application in combination with Angular. So I go ahead and select it and click on Next and give it a name. I'll simply call it Test Project. Now I select .NET 6, no authentication type, and click on Create. So now let's simply hit Start to start the debugger and launch our application to just get started and to see what that template is delivering us. And the first thing to mention is, take a look right here. Restoring dependencies using NPM, which is the Node Package Manager. And this is because Angular is using Node.js. And Node.js is offering, well, additional packages which contain JavaScript code, for example, which get delivered over NPM, which is the Node Package Management System. So NPM is Node Package Manager. So this is just some information for you. So now you know that Angular is using Node.js. So once all dependencies for Angular are installed, you will get to that page here. He's still launching the single page application proxy, right? You can read it here. Let's give it some moments and then it should be working. Now you can see that our project is loaded and it looks like the familiar MVC template that you already know. Let's just take a look on what we have right here. As you can see, it already provides us some information, right? So we're using ASP.NET Core and C# for cross-platform server-side code. So for server-side, right, we use ASP.NET Core. For front-end or client-side, we use Angular and TypeScript. And for styling and layout, we still use Bootstrap, which is just a CSS styling library. Now, this is the home page. When we click on Counter, we will come to an Angular component. This is what it is, and we can increment it. We will take a look at that just in a second. And we also got a fetch data link right here where we get that default weather cast information, right? So this is what the template is delivering us by default. So let's switch back and see how it looks like in the folder and project structure. First of all, let's start with the things that you already know. Here we have that program.cs file again, which is just a configuration of our ASP.NET Core backend. And as you can see, it still looks exactly how you know it, right? Again, we have that configuration here, we have that map routing here, we still have controllers and views, right? But we are not returning any HTML here, we are just returning data, and the HTML gets rendered by Angular. However, all of this will be covered during the course. I will just explain what we can see here. We still have that weather forecast class. This is simply what we have seen when we clicked on forecast. And we also have a controllers folder with the weather forecast controller, but this time you can see a difference. So there are two attributes that you can use. One is controller and one is API controller. And API controller is for external usage, so that another project, for example, our Angular project, can connect to this controller. If you simply use controller, it will not be available from outside of this project. Now, as you can see, we have that HTTP GET attribute right here, which decorates that GET method right here. So our API controller has a GET endpoint, and this one is simply returning some fake weather data. So, okay, this is what you already know, right? So the main difference is that we have the API controller attribute here instead of the default controller attribute. Now let's close the folder and go to pages. So all of the content that we can see, all of those pages like the counter page, like the forecast page and the home page, they are not coming from here. They're not coming from pages, right? And that's totally fine, because who cares about our pages? It is Angular. It's the single page application which we create with Angular. And we can find Angular here in client app. So let me get that clear. When we created that project, we created two applications. We created our ASP.NET Core backend application, and we created our front-end client-side Angular application. So our program.cs defines our backend ASP.NET Core application, and our client app this is the home folder for our Angular app. And once you open it, you can see that we have a lot of JS and Angular stuff going on right here. When we now go to source folder here and open up the index.html, you can see that this is the container which we have talked about when we discovered single page applications. So this is where everything is going on. We will come to that later again. And here you can see when we open up the app folder, you can see counter, fetch data, home, and nav menu, right? So you already get the idea of how it's structured, right? So inside of that home folder, we got the home component, which has an HTML file. And here you can see, hello world, welcome to our new single page application, right? And once we started the application, we exactly saw that content, right? So this is what we can see here. Okay, so now you should have a first idea of what is going on. We have our ASP.NET Core backend, which is handling the request, and we have our Angular project, which is handling displaying the views, etc. And you can see that it's incredibly fast when I go or switch between home, counter, fetch data, right? This is super fast. And you can even see that the page is not reloading at all. On the top left corner, you would by default see a reload icon here when I click on the link. But instead of reloading the page, only the content is swapping. So only the content inside of that single index file is changing. This is why we don't have any loading time right here. So this is really amazing. And now you have already really learned a lot of stuff, I guess, but we need to proceed here. We need to prepare you even further for that challenge so that you really get the most out of it, because we have a huge goal, right? We want to get you job ready as a web developer. And this is why we now go ahead and take a look at TypeScript. Because when we click on the home component.ts right here, we can see that this is written in TypeScript. So let me give you a quick introduction into TypeScript, and you don't have to worry if you are familiar with C#. This will be very, very easy for you. So you will not learn a completely new programming language now, right? This is not what it's about. It's just a quick talk about what TypeScript is, how methods are working and all that stuff. We will just go through all of it real quick, but you will have no problems at all in writing TypeScript code. Alright, so see you in the next video. Let's talk about TypeScript.